Public memory often frames the 2016 election as the moment American democracy shattered. This narrative overlooks the decades of quiet, structural decay that hollowed out the system from the inside. Complex systems rarely fail all at once. Before a structure gives way, the strain accumulates over generations. The real damage happens through a slow, imperceptible process of hollowing out the foundation long before the public notices a crack. In The Stress Test, Peter Woodkay argues that the chaotic campaigns of the mid-2010s were not the origin of the damage. 2016 simply provided the moment the internal rotting of the system finally became visible. Systems fail when the unwritten assumptions holding them together no longer align with the reality moving through them. The written Constitution provides the frame of American governance. It is a rigid, structured outline, but even the most precise text cannot account for every possible human scenario. Day-to-day stability depends on an invisible architecture. The load-bearing elements are unwritten agreements, informal norms, expected consequences, and a shared baseline of truth. These keep ambition in check, ensuring contested power stays within boundaries, preventing the legal frame from snapping. If the load-bearing foundation of a shared reality rots away, the rigid legal framework is forced to carry weight it was never designed to hold. For much of the 20th century, Americans operated within a relatively bounded media environment. A small set of centralized gatekeepers filtered the news, creating a shared framework where disagreement could occur over a stable set of facts. The rise of algorithm-driven platforms shifted the priority from factual verification to intense emotional engagement. These systems learn what we respond to, accelerating the speed of information while bypassing traditional institutional filters. These algorithms segmented the public into isolated feedback loops. Users were trapped inside informational bubbles where contradictory evidence failed to penetrate. Political debates became contests between competing versions of reality, each reinforced by its own network of validation. A democracy can survive intense disagreement, but it cannot function without a shared baseline from which to disagree. Historically, crossing an unwritten political boundary led to predictable outcomes. A breach of decorum or a perceived overreach would trigger broad institutional pushback or a career-ending scandal. Fractured information ecosystems altered this calculus. Politicians can now shield their behavior inside specific, highly supportive media bubbles. Within these networks, norm-breaking is often celebrated as a sign of strength rather than a violation. This environment created power without penalty. Breaking the rules became a zero-risk strategy because the threat of broad, system-wide public backlash had evaporated. Without consistent consequences, the unwritten boundaries of governance became optional. The system began to rely on law alone, stripping away the normative restraint that once carried the load of political life. When the penalty for bad behavior mathematically drops to zero, the unwritten restraints that support the entire democratic architecture disappear. Political actors adapted to this normless environment by treating formal procedures as strategic weapons. Rules were no longer boundaries to be respected, but tools used to stall, manipulate, or redirect outcomes. With the informal norms of compromise gone, the entire weight of governance fell onto the rigid written laws. This shift resulted in the massive systemic gridlock that defined the legislature in the years leading up to 2016. This gridlock forced the presidency to expand its reach. Executive power grew to fill the void, creating an office operating with vast authority but increasingly detached from historical restraint. By 2016, the system appeared intact from a distance, but its foundation was hollow. The structure was brittle, inflexible, and primed for a shock event. The 2016 election demonstrated the strategic success of a candidate who understood how to navigate a system where the rules had already become optional. This approach mapped the new boundaries of the republic, exposing exactly how much deviation the weakened architecture would tolerate. Successfully crossing these boundaries without penalty established a precedent for all future political actors. Written laws are insufficient to protect against these tactics. No formal code can anticipate every creative abuse of power or institutional collapse. To stabilize American democracy, we cannot simply point to the legal code. We must rebuild the shared reality and unwritten norms that actually bear the weight of the system.